Hi.
Hi, can you hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. We're here in front of MZ headquarters, and we're going to actually enter MZ headquarters. And let me show you what we have. We're going to occupy MZ and bring these boxes in to show that we know that MZ is funding ethnic cleansing. So we're going to take over their office the same way that MZ is taking over Palestinian land in Silwan and all over Palestine 48. We're going to say that they have no right to be funding ethnic cleansing and the displacement of millions. So we're going to be taking their office and moving in. And if they have a problem with that, we'll say that this is what they support. So we're just doing the same thing that they support in Palestine. Oh, I think JVP Bay Area is asking to be added. Thank you so much to everyone that's joining, whether you're on the Pacific Coast, on the East Coast, or in Palestine. We're here in front of the MZ Foundation in San Francisco. The MZ Foundation is a nonprofit that hides behind saying that it is a Jewish charity, but they're not doing anything for Jewish people or a Jewish charity. What they're doing is directly funding ethnic cleansing, specifically in Silwan. And we know that the deadline for Palestinians in Silwan to self-evict themselves and destroy their homes is coming up. So we're here at the source of what gives them money to be doing what they're doing. MZ Foundation directly funds the Central Fund of Israel, which directly contributes to the Israeli Land Fund. That's the main organization that is buying Palestinian homes out for settlers. So, American settlers that are coming in from all over the United States are taking people's homes in East Jerusalem, all over Palestine 48. And MZ Foundation, the building that we're in front of right now, is directly what makes that happen. They are the ones that pay the legal fees for all the settlers that are currently taking Palestinians to court to steal their homes, to take over their land, and institute apartheid and genocide. So MZ Foundation right here is the source of all that. We must remember that nonprofits in the US are directly responsible for what's happening in Palestine. These nonprofits are all around us. There's one right here in the Bay Area, but there's nonprofits all around the US that hide behind a tax-exempt status to be funneling money into Israel, into Israeli settlers, and also funding the Israeli occupation forces themselves. So we're going to enter this building and make it clear that we will not stand for that, that we're aware of what they're doing, that we know that as people in America, we have a responsibility to tackle what these nonprofits are doing in our names as Jewish people and as Palestinians and allies here. So get ready for us to walk in. We'll be entering in just a couple of minutes.
Just to let everyone know, we're about to walk into MZ's lobby.
MZ, you can't hide.
We charge you with genocide.
MZ, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide.
MZ, you can hide.
We charge you with genocide.
MZ, you can hide.
We charge you with genocide.
MZ, you can hide.
We charge you with genocide.
MZ, you can hide.
We charge you with genocide.
Free, free Palestine.
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 MZ, you can't hide.
We charge you with genocide.
MZ, you can't hide.
We charge you with genocide.
MZ, you can't hide.
We charge you with genocide.
MZ, you can't hide.
We charge you with genocide. MZ, you can't hide.
We charge you with genocide.
MZ, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. MZ, you can't hide.
We charge you with genocide.
MZ, you can't hide.
We charge you with genocide.
MZ, you can't hide.
We charge you with genocide.
MZ, you can't hide.
We charge you with genocide.
We're here in front of the MZ Foundation in San Francisco. We are trying to make it clear to MZ Foundation that takes office in this building in Sutter Plaza that we will no longer be complicit, that we know what's happening in this building is the funding of ethnic cleansing in Palestine. They have locked the doors because they do not want the world to know that MZ Foundation takes office in this building. They use a tax-exempt status to fund what's happening in Palestine, specifically the ethnic cleansing in Silwan, East Jerusalem, and all over Palestine 48. We're here with boxes that have the names of all of the organizations that MZ funds, and we're moving in because that's what MZ does. We're taking over their office, their building, because that's what MZ Foundation does in Palestine. They fund the settlers and the legal fees that take over and steal Palestinian land. What happens in this office is land theft, genocide, and ethnic cleansing. So we're taking over the office the same way that they take over Palestinian land. We're moving in, and if they have a problem with that, they should stop the Israeli land theft in Jerusalem. Is that right? Woo! Is that right?
Woo!
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
All right, yo, I got a statement. So, when I say free, you say Palestine. Free.
Palestine! Palestine!
When I say free, you say Palestine. Free.
Palestine!
Free.
Palestine!
All right, y'all make some noise. The Palestinian Youth Movement stands with our siblings in Silwan, Sheikh Jarrah, Lifta, and Baita, fighting for the right to live in freedom and dignity on their land. At the end of this weekend, 1,500 people, over 120 families in Silwan are facing ethnic cleansing and forced expulsion at the hands of the Israeli military and Zionist settlers. Boo! 1,500 Palestinians will be homeless, kicked out of the neighborhood they have lived in for generations to make way for settlers from places like New York. Palestinians in Sheikh Jarrah are also facing forced expulsion and displacement from their homes. When Palestinians resist the stealing of their homes, they face brutal and violent repression. The the money and resources to steal Palestinian homes from right here in San Francisco. From registered nonprofits like the MZ Foundation, which sends millions of dollars to settlers colonizing neighborhoods throughout the Quds, Jerusalem, and in all of Palestine. The blood of the Palestinian people is on the hands of the MZ Foundation. These criminal nonprofits receive tax deductions and resources from the U.S. government, from our tax money, to fund ethnic cleansing and genocide. Are we going to let them get away with this?
Fuck no!
Are we going to let them get away with this?
No!
We are witnessing the ongoing Nakba and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians in real time, and the ongoing Nakba must end. What is happening in Silwan and Sheikh Jarrah is not new. Since the beginning of Zionist colonization of Palestine, for over 73 years, Palestinians have been kicked out and denied return to their homes and villages, have had their homes stolen and demolished, have had their families imprisoned and killed. For over 73 years, Palestinians have been resisting this attack on every front of their lives. They remain steadfast on the rights of their own land, and we stand with them today. From San Francisco to Palestine, we rise up to the liberation and demand justice for our people. From the river to the sea,
Palestine will be free!
from the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free!
The MZ Foundation not only funds the Central Fund of Israel and Friends of I.R. David, but it is also the main office of commercial property management company Myron Zimmerman Investments. MZ facilitates not just the violent displacement and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians in Palestine, but it also sponsors gentrification, displacement, and homelessness here in the Bay. From San Francisco to Palestine, displacement is a crime. From San Francisco to Palestine,
Displacement is a crime!
San Francisco to Palestine,
Displacement is a crime!
San Francisco to Palestine.
Displacement is a crime!
People of Silwan stay steadfast in their right to remain on their land. We will not relent until that right is honored. A fire is burning from Palestine to the world, and the fire will keep burning. We will not be silenced, and our struggle will continue until victory. We reject any normalization with the Zionist forces and ideology displacing and killing the Palestinian people. And we call on Palestinians everywhere and all supporters of our just cause to intensify their efforts to confront Zionism, to research the organizations in their cities that are funding genocide and to expose them. We demand an end to U.S. complicity in the Zionist occupation's forced expulsion of the Palestinian families, and we fight with the Palestinian people for their right to live in freedom and dignity in their homeland. We honor every martyr and every prisoner who fought for our people's lives, rights, and land. The stories of their lives are immortalized in our struggle. We will not rest until our prisoners' chains are broken, until our martyrs are buried in the villages of their grandparents and great-grandparents, until the people of Silwan, of Sheikh Jarrah, of Khalil can sleep in their beds without fear of losing their homes. We will not rest until Palestine is free from the river to the sea. From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
To the sea!
Palestine will be free!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
My name is Liza, and I'm here representing JVP Bay Area and JVP Berkeley. We're here as Jews, specifically, because we know what's happening in MZ Foundation is absolutely nothing to do with Judaism, nothing to do with Jewish charity. We understand that what's happening in Palestine
you with genocide.
You can't hide.
We charge you with genocide.
You can't hide.
We charge you with genocide.
You can't hide.
We charge you with genocide.
What are you saying?
How many homes have you stolen today?
What do you say?
How many homes have you stolen today?
What do you say?
How many homes have you stolen today?
What do you say?
How many homes have you stolen today?
What do you say?
How many homes have you stolen today?
What do you say?
How many homes have you stolen today?
For everyone that's just tuning in, we're in front of the MC Foundation in San Francisco. This is a private family foundation from the personal wealth of real estate executive and tycoon magnate Myron Zimmerman. He hosts Myron Zimmerman Investments, a real estate company that contributes to the gentrification of the Bay Area, as well as the MC Foundation, which contributes to Israeli land theft, the demolition of homes, the stealing of Palestinian land and displacement, forced expulsion in Palestine. So we say from the Bay to Palestine, end displacement, end gentrification, and end the land theft. His real estate company and the MC Foundation funds organizations directly involved in the ethnic cleansing in Palestine. There could never be a more direct link. The MC Foundation has given $3.8 million to the Central Fund of Israel. What do you think about that?
Fuck that!
What do you think about that?
Fuck that!
The Central Fund of Israel makes up 99% of the Israeli Land Fund's budget. And what is the Israeli Land Fund? It's the organization on the ground in Israel that directly funds the stealing of Palestinian homes, specifically the ones you've been hearing about in East Jerusalem and all over occupied Palestine. They pay the legal fees for the settlers that are trying to steal the homes of Palestinians that have lived and nurtured their land for generations. They allow American settlers to move in, demolish cities, destroy culture, create ethnocide, burn down olive trees, desecrate the land, and displace thousands and thousands of people. Just between 2015 and 2018, MC has given the Central Fund of Israel $3.8 million. But it doesn't end there. They also specifically fund the Friends of Irdavi Foundation, the Hebron Fund, the Zionist Organization of America, Prager University, David Florence Foundation. It's not just the Central Fund of Israel that creates land theft in Palestine. The Friends of the Irdavi Foundation is the organization responsible specifically for the displacement and land theft in Sheikh Jarrah and in Silwan. The other organizations that MC funds create retreats for IDF soldiers in Palestine, create safety and surveillance for settlers as they take over Palestinian land. The Israeli Land Fund is a settler organization that about the MC Foundation is to do with Jewish values or creating the safety for Jews. It's all about settler colonialism. Because if we look at what's happening in so-called Israel as well, the organizations that MC funds also endanger Palestinian Jews, Mizrahi Jews in South Tel Aviv. And it does nothing for Jews in the diaspora. Because genocide in Palestine does not keep Jews safe. Solidarity with Palestinians is intrinsically aligned with all of our liberations. Because we cannot be free until all of us are free. Free them all! They claim to be a Jewish charity. For anyone that's just joining, we're in front of the MC Foundation, an organization that directly funds land theft in Palestine. But once again, Zionism has nothing to do with our religion, everything to do with genocide and colonialism. Is what they're doing actually helping Jews? No. Or is it merely advancing the Zionist project? It's not helping Palestinian Jews. Is it keeping us safe in the diaspora?
No.
Is funding genocide keeping us safe in the diaspora?
No.
Jewish organizations that take money from MC include Hillel, Silicon Valley, Chabad, students supporting Israel on campuses across the country, including UC Berkeley and Stanford. Hillel, Silicon Valley specifically, claims itself to be a Jewish community organization, but we know they take the same apartheid money from the MC Foundation as the money that goes directly to the ethnic cleansing, displacement, and genocide in Palestine. It's the same money that goes into demolishing Palestinians' homes, replacing them with American settlers, destroying their land, tearing down entire villages to create Jewish supremacist towns that Hillel, Silicon Valley accepts the money from. They claim to be a Jewish organization, a Jewish community organization, but they're not working for the Jewish community here. They're directly complicit in the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. The director of Hillel, Silicon Valley was also the former director of the Friends of the IDF Foundation in Northern California. What do you think about that?
Boo.
What do you think about that?
Boo.
So we know that all organizations that take money from the MC Foundation are equally complicit in what Byron Zimmerman is funding in Palestine. We will not look away, and we will make it known that every organization, every person associated with MC, we will come back. We know what they're doing, and it will be made public. They can no longer hide behind a tax-exempt status. When we have uncovered their crimes, war crimes, ethnic cleansing, genocide, anyone associated to MC Foundation will have to answer for this from now on. MC, what do you say?
How many homes have you stolen today?
MC, what do you say?
How many homes have you stolen today?
MC, what do you say?
How many homes have you stolen today?
MC, what do you say? MC,
Not in our name, not in our time, no ethnic cleansing in Palestine.
Not in our name, not in our dime.
No ethnic cleansing in Palestine.
not in our name,
Not in our dime.
No ethnic cleansing in Palestine.
not in
Our
our
name, not in our dime.
No ethnic cleansing in Palestine. Not in our name, not in our time.
Palestine.
Not in our name.
not in our dime,
No ethnic cleansing in Palestine.
not in our name, not in our dime.
No ethnic cleansing in Palestine.
Free Palestine.
All right, thank you all for joining us.
Free Palestine. From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
Thank you so much to everyone. We're going to be
right, thank you all for joining us. As you can see, there are activists right now from Jewish Voice for Peace who are protesting at MZ Foundation in San Francisco. MZ Foundation, which my colleague Paul is going to talk about, who's also from JVP, is an organization that is funding the displacement of Palestinians in Silwan. Before we talk about that, we are going to have someone join us later from Silwan who's going to talk about what's going on the ground. For those who don't know, what's happening right now is the same thing that's happening in Sheikh Jarrah. The Israeli Zionist apartheid state is, with settler organizations, are trying to force Palestinians out of their rightfully owned homes. What's happening in Silwan is that a lot of families have received demolition orders, eviction orders, what they call eviction orders, which is really forced displacement and forced expulsion. What these orders mean is that if these families do not destroy their homes in by their own hands, they are going to be fined. That is absurd. Imagine having to get out of your house and break it down so you don't get fined, and either way you'd be out of your own home. This is not just happening in Silwan, it is happening in the areas inside the neighborhood of Silwan, like Batn Al Haaa, which we will also be talking about today. You know, I'm going to move a little to Paul, if you can tell us a little bit about these settler organizations. MZ Foundation is not the only one. We know Nahalat Shimon in Sheikh Jarrah, Ataret Kohanim, IR David organizations as well. Maybe tell us a little bit about MZ Foundation specifically, and what kind of money are they sending? How are they supporting settler organizations? How are they displacing Palestinians?
Yeah, thank you for that. So hi everyone, my name is Paul. I'm an organizer with JVP. And as you heard in the action, we are at the MZ Foundation, which is a San Francisco-based nonprofit that is directly involved in displacing people, Palestinians, from historic Palestine. So the MZ Foundation is, the money comes from real estate magnate Meyer Zimmerman, who puts money, tax-exempt money, because it's registered as a nonprofit, into his foundation. And then he uses that money to donate to a whole bunch of different organizations, most notably the Central Fund of Israel. That's the main organization that he donates to. So he donates, in the past, from 2015 to 2018 alone, he donated $3.8 million to the Central Fund of Israel. And the Central Fund of Israel is a New York-based nonprofit that also donates tax-free money to different settler orgs in Israel. So the organization that we're looking at most here is the Israeli Land Fund, which of which 99.2% of its budget comes directly from the Central Fund of Israel. So that means that literally the vast majority of this settler organization that is literally displacing Palestinians from their homes on the ground, the money comes from US-based nonprofits that qualify as nonprofits with tax-exempt status because they're so-called Jewish community organizations. But really, if we look at what they're materially doing, they're just displacing Palestinians from their home in Palestine. So we call on all Jews to, especially Jews, to focus on these settler organizations and US-based nonprofits that claim to be Jewish organizations, but are really materially just funding genocide and advancing the goal of Zionism, which is the ongoing genocide of the Palestinian people. As was mentioned, so the Israeli Land Fund is very active in Sheikh Jarrah and displacing people there. This organization buys people's homes and makes them Jewish only. So we know from the video from the El Kurd house that settler Jacob, who, you know, was quoted as saying, "Oh, the owner of the house wants me to live here." We know that there are these settler organizations in Palestine that fund these settlers to move there, that prevent Palestinians from living in their homes, finance the court fees of these settlers. And so the Israeli Land Fund is just one of these organizations. There are many organizations like this. And the point that we're trying to make and really drive home here is that there are ethnic cleansing in Palestine is not just fueled by the state apparatus, nor is it just fueled by settlers. It's also fueled by these settler organizations, which get their money in no small part from US-based organizations. So that's a quick overview. I'll hand it back to PYM for now.
Thank you so much, JVP. So again, folks, Paul just talked about MZ Foundation and the Israel Fund and how they're funding settler organizations that are displacing Palestinians in Jerusalem, not just in Sheikh Jarrah, as we have seen in the media, but also in Silwan. We're trying to get someone up right now from Silwan to speak to us. So if you can give us a few moments. Noting again that these organizations are tax exempt, right? So while our tax money in the United States goes to fund the Israeli military that murders Palestinian children, organizations who are sending millions of dollars to kick people out of their homes are not even paying taxes to the government. It is absurd that these charities are going by unchecked. So if y'all just give me a few moments. We're trying to invite Silwan up. There we go. مرحبا أمير.
مرحب يا هلا صحيح أمير.
So hi everyone, this is Ameer from Silwan. أمير إذا فيك تخبرنا شوي شو عم بصير بسلوان وأنا بترجم لك مش مشكلة.
يعطيكم العافية ويسعد مساكم طبعا ومشكورين جدا على اهتمامكم ومشاركتكم في الفعالية تاعت اليوم اللي هي يعني مناصرة وتضامنية من أجل يعني إحياء سلوان والشيخ جراح أيضا. احنا أول شيء كنا حابين ندخل من صفحة سيف سلوان بس إذا بدكم نعاود ندخل منها كمان شوي ندخل مش مشكلة. احنا حاليا بدك أدخل منها أحسن؟
أعطي فوت من سيف سلوان أحسن وهلا أنا بترجم أنت شو حكيت.
تمام يلا.
Okay.
تمام.
So first of all, Ameer is from Silwan. He's going to try to rejoin us from a different account right now. He is saying that they are very happy that we are standing in solidarity with them. They are sending all love and solidarity with the folks in San Francisco right now. They see this as a triumph and they are very happy that we are standing in solidarity with them. I'm going to try to bring him back so they can tell us what's going on in Silwan. Let's see.
Maybe while we're waiting on that, I just want to add that the MZ Foundation also funds an settler organization operating in Silwan. So this is the Friends of the Ir David foundation. This is an organization that has colonial archaeological projects operating in Silwan, digging up relics from thousands of years ago, and with the goal of showing that this land somehow belongs to Jews, even though Palestinians have lived there for generations. So this is another organization that MZ funds, and this is an organization that is directly affecting the folks in Silwan now. And also while we're waiting, I just want to emphasize that, actually I'll go ahead.
طيب لكن تفضل أمير إذا فيك تخبرنا شو عم بيصير إذا بتعطيني بين المعلومة والمعلومة بس لأقدر أترجم لهم بس تعطيني وقت.
تمام
تفضل.
تمام بدك أحكي بشكل عام عن إيش بيصير بسلوان أبدأ؟
أحكي بشكل عام وبنفس الوقت إذا صار أي أحداث جديدة يعني في الأيام الماضية. تمام
أول شيء يعني سلوان هي تعتبر يعني البلدة أو القرية الأقرب للبلدة القديمة وللمسجد الأقصى المبارك. هي من الناحية الجنوبية يعني المحاذية من الناحية الجنوبية للسور تاع البلدة القديمة وتبعد فقط 200 متر هوائي عن البلدة القديمة. تمام فمن هون أجا الاستهداف الشرس والقوي يعني بلدة سلوان وأحيائها. عندنا في سلوان يوجد يعني 13 حي 6 أحياء منهم إما مهدد بالهدم أو مهدد بالإجلاء أو مهدد يعني بالمصادرة. يعني كل حي له قضيته. مثلا حي البستان القضية تاعته يعني هي إنه هدم كافة البيوت الموجودة فيه، يعني حوالي في 100 منزل في حي البستان صادر بحقهم أوامر هدم من أجل يعني إقامة حديقة توراتية، حديقة تلمودية، أهدافها يعني استيطانية، أهدافها استعمارية، بيستندوا ل يعني خرافات دينية يعني غير صحيحة وغير شرعية وغير قانونية أصلا. يعني إنه إحنا ما نيجي نهدم يعني والله حي بالكامل ونهجر 1500 مواطن فلسطيني داخل هذا الحي عشان والله نعمل حديقة اللي يلعبوا فيها يعني أولاد المستوطنين، يعني مش إنه والله مش راح أنا أستفيد منها كفلسطيني. فهذه يعني قضية واحدة وقضية مهمة، وحاليا هي يعني ساخنة جدا. أنا الآن موجود داخل حي البستان عشان تكونوا بالصورة، ويعني على يميني خيمة الاعتصام تاعت حي البستان. بدك ترجمة ولا أكمل على
اه
الأحياء الثانية؟ يلا تمام.
خليني أترجم. So Ameer right now is with us from Silwan. He is currently in the Bustan neighborhood in Silwan. He is saying that Silwan is a very important area in Jerusalem because it's very close to the old city, it's close to the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And what they're trying to do, they're trying to kick out and expel around 1,500 Palestinians from their homes so that they can build a park. So he's saying, imagine, they're trying to kick people out of their homes with nowhere to go, their rightfully owned homes, so that in the name of false religious myths and in the name of having a park. So it's absurd. So he's saying right now he is in Al Bustan neighborhood and he is near a tent that they're having a protest tent in Silwan. So while they're protesting in San Francisco, they're also protesting in Silwan. كمل أمير.
تمام. هذا يعني أول حي اللي أنا موجود فيه هلا. ننتقل للحي الثاني اللي هو يعني مقابل لحي البستان، قريب جدا من حي البستان، اللي هو حي بطن الهوى. حي بطن الهوى قضيته مختلفة. حي بطن الهوى فيه حوالي 86 عائلة مهددين جميعهم بالتهجير وإخلاء بيوتهم لصالح المستوطنين. تمام. ففي حوالي 700 منزل، في حوالي قصدي 86 عائلة، 700 مواطن فلسطيني بيعيش في هذا الحي، جميعهم صادر بحقهم قرارات تهجيرية، قرار يعني من محاكم الاحتلال. الآن يعني هم في الاستئنافات بس، ولكن يعني دائما وابدا احنا ما بنعول على المحاكم والقضاء لانه جميعهم صف واحد ضد الفلسطيني في القدس وخاصه في سلوان. فحي بطن الهوى القضيه تاعته مختلفه عن حي البستان. القضيه هي انه عندهم ادعاءات انه كان في يهود قبل 150 عام ايام الدوله العثمانيه بيعيشوا على هذه الارض. تمام. فهم يعني اليهود هذول غادروا المكان هذا قبل 100 عام، يعني ايام الانتداب البريطاني وما بعد. وهم حاليا مش عارف جابوا اوراق، زوروا اوراق، يعني ادعاءات واهيه، ما لهم اي يعني احقيه انهم يعني يجوا ويهجروا 700 مواطن فلسطيني صار له عايش هون 100 سنه حوالي يعني. فهذه القضيه حاليا يعني هي ساخنه في سلوان، وهم ايضا سيطروا على 4-5 منازل في الحي من خلال المحاكم. يعني اذا انا بصور لك فيديو، اذا بنقل الكاميرا يعني مباشره بتشوفي في نجمه، هذه النجمه نجمه اسرائيل، نجمه داوود، هذه داخل حي بطن الهوى، داخل الحي. هاي تم الاستيلاء عليها من خلال المحاكم العنصريه، المحاكم الاسرائيليه، وتهجروا سكانها واستاجروا يعني بالحي المحاذي لبيتهم. يعني هم ما ابعدوا كثير عن بيتهم. كل يوم الصبح يعني كل ما يصحوا من النوم يعني اكيد بنظروا لبيتهم اللي كانوا عايشين فيه، وبنظروا له يعني نظره حسره، نظره الم، انه يعني كيف المستوطن اللي جاي من اوروبا وجاي من امريكا يعني ما صارلوش سنتين في البلد بيجي بسكن مكاني وبعيش مكاني في البيت اللي انا ارتبيت فيه سنين حياتي الطويله. فهذا هو حي بطن الهواء المقابلنا حاليا. هلا بطلع من فوق بصور لكم اياه احسن، فبتقدر تترجمي هلا.
تمام. He's also saying that Al Bustan neighborhood, which he's at right now, is also close to the neighborhood of Batn Al Haaa, which is another neighborhood all within the area of Silwan. It has a different situation, similar but different situation in terms of the urgency of what's happening right now. What has happened in Batn Al Haaa is that 86 families, which is about more than 700 people, have received court orders of what the government calls evictions, which is basically expulsions and home demolitions. They are currently in the appeal process with the courts, but there is no trust of Israeli courts because they do not have any jurisdiction in what is basically called internationally East Jerusalem right now. It is illegal for them to have any jurisdiction anyway in the area. He also said that settlers have already taken over 4 to 5 houses in the past few years, and one of the houses he just showed us, if you were watching, and what he's showing us right now is also a different area where the settlers are going to take over in the Batn Al Haaa neighborhood. He said that a family rented a home right next to their home, the home that they have owned for years, and every morning they wake up and they see that the home is taken by settlers, the home that they have built memories in, that they have grew up in. It is very painful for them. That's what he is saying. For folks, just to add a little bit, a few weeks ago there was a marathon that took place in Jerusalem in support of the Silwan families. Israeli Zionist police attacked the runners. They beat them on their legs, all because they were standing in solidarity with these families. He also mentioned that the courts are trying to take over these homes for European and American settlers who come mostly from Brooklyn, to be honest. They live their entire lives in Europe, they're American, they're European, and they just come over and take the homes over falsified documents claiming that these homes belong to Yemeni Jews under the Ottoman Empire. It's important to note that Israeli law, while it recognizes Jewish individuals who left their homes pre-1948, it does not recognize the ownership of Palestinians who were kicked out of their homes pre-1948. So there's a form of discrimination
طبعا
there as well.
بعد اذنك بس لازم ننوه لشغله مهمه، انه الجمعيات الاستيطانيه هي اللي عمالها بتشتغل. يعني عندنا جمعيه عطيره كوهانيم الاستيطانيه وجمعيه العاد. جمعيه عطيره كوهانيم يعني هي مختصه فقط تجمع اموال من رؤوس الاموال اليهود واللي في امريكا واللي في اوروبا واللي موجودين هون، لحتى فقط لهدف واحد. يعني شوف، يعني كل الجمعيه هاي والاموال هاي لهدف واحد، اللي هو الاستيلاء والتهويد والاستعمار في سلوان وفي البلده القديمه. يعني هي اهدافها فقط منطقتين، والاستيلاء على اكبر كميه ممكنه من البيوت والاراضي في منطقه سلوان وفي البلده القديمه. فيعني حجم الاموال اللي عندهم وحجم الضغط، هم يعني احنا بنعتبرهم كمقدسيين وابناء سلوان. يعني جمعيه عطيره كوهانيم هي ذراع تنفيذي لحكومه الاحتلال. يعني اي نعم هي مش مؤسسه رسميه تابعه للحكومه بشكل رسمي، بس ولكن احنا متاكدين واحنا عارفين، لانه في تسهيلات كثيره بتعطيها حكومه الاحتلال لصالح يعني الجمعيات هاي اللي هي العاد وعطيره كوهانيم. فجمعيه عطيره كوهانيم ادعت بال 2004 ويعني واستغلت انه يعني المحاكم هذه جميعها عنصريه، فالمحكمه المركزيه اعطتهم انه هم صاحبين الوصايه على املاك اليهود اللي كانوا في ايام الدوله العثمانيه. فمن خلال هذه الوصايه اللي اعطتهم اياها المحكمه، صاروا يعني استغلوها في انهم يجوا ويرفعوا دعاوي على يعني جميع الاهالي في يعني بعض الاراضي وبعض المنازل اللي ادعوا انها يعني تعود ملكيتها لليهود قبل 150 عام. فهي جمعيه عطيره كوهانيم هي اللي عمالها بتشتغل على الاستيلاء وعلى السيطره على الاراضي والبيوت في سلوان. وبالمقابل جمعيه العاد عمالها بتحفر تحت سلوان. يعني هي عمالها يعني من حوالي 20 سنه 30 سنه، وهم يوميا الحفريات شغاله تحت بلده سلوان. يعني اذا بتشوفي بلده سلوان هاي كلياتها، كل هاي المنطقه من عند السور، شايفين من سور البلده القديمه اللي هو يعني قبالي بالضبط لحتى يعني لاخر سلوان، جميع حفريات تحت البيوت، تحت المنازل. وهذا الاشي بسبب اضرار كثيره، عدا عن انه يعني انه الحكومه الاحتلال، اي نعم هي حكومه احتلال واحنا عارفين انها عنصريه، يعني اقل ما فيها تشكل يعني ذراع رسمي حكومي او سلطه الاثار والبيئه والطبيعه هي اللي تقوم بالحفريات هاي، مش تكون جمعيه استيطانيه اهدافها تهويديه اللي هي تكون بالحفريات هاي اللي احنا عارفين. الحفريات هاي اللي عمالة بتقوم فيها جمعية العياد راح تزورها، راح تحرفها لصالح لصالح أكاذيبهم وادعاءاتهم الباطلة. وكثير حصلت إنه يعني تم التزوير وتم يعني نبش الآثار هاي وحرفها، وعشان بالآخر يعني يزوروا الحقيقة. يعني واضحة الأمور. فهي يعني مش المفروض إنها تكون جمعية العاد هي اللي لازم يعني تكون بالحفريات هاي. هذا إشي باطل وغير قانوني، عدا عن إنه يعني أيضا حكومة الاحتلال ممنوع وغير قانوني إنها تكون بهذه الحفريات، لأنه يعني وفق القانون الدولي ممنوع على دولة الاحتلال إنها تغير من الطابع الجغرافي أو الديموغرافي في المناطق المحتلة، ومعترف دوليا إنه هذه الأراضي محتلة. فجميعه باطل وجميعه غير شرعي وجميعه غير قانوني، ولكن يعني العالم مش عماله يعني بوقف عند مسؤولياته.
So, shukran, Ameer. So, Ameer is saying that it's important to note settler organizations' role. So, he mentions Ataret Kohanim and Il'ad, which is another settler organization. He says Ataret Kohanim's main role is to collect money. So, you know, money that's coming from the MZ Foundation, for example, or from other organizations abroad. They take millions and millions of dollars for the sole purpose of suing Palestinian families to kick them out of their homes. He is saying that in 2004, the Israeli Zionist government gave Ataret Kohanim ownership of these homes so that they can have the rights to actually sue these families, which is completely falsified. It's completely illegal. He says that what Il'ad is doing specifically, and he's showing us right now the area in Silwan, they're actually digging underground. They're digging underground for archaeological purposes, and they're causing a lot of damage, not only to the environment, but they're causing damage to the homes that are built on the ground. He's saying that this is completely illegal, especially under international law. No organization or government is even allowed to change the geographical sort of appearance or system of occupied land, which is, in this case, East Jerusalem, according to international law. And one more thing he says is that, you know, logically speaking, the government arm of maybe the environment ministry or someone who's actually specialized in archaeology is probably supposed to be looking into this, not organizations. So that's another aspect of these private settler organizations having this power from the Zionist government to actually go and dig under Palestinian homes. Ameer, بدك تزيد شيء؟
يعني طبعا يعني برضو يعني في احياء اخرى في سلوان مهدده، مش فقط حي بطن الهواء وحي البستان. عندنا في احصائيه جديده تم يعني الوصول إلها من خلال لجنه الدفاع عن اراضي سلوان، هم قبل شوي كانوا مجتمعين حتى، يعني انه في 6280 بيت في بلده سلوان مهددين بالهدم، صادر بحقهم قرارات هدم. هم عمالهم بيدفعوا مخالفات باهظه كثير، وبالعاده بتكون هذه المخالفات يعني مبالغ كثير كثير عاليه. وايضا لما يكونوا يدفعوا المخالفات مش انه والله يعني عشان دفعوا مخالفات بيتم يعني عدم هدم البيت، لا، بيتم هدم البيت بعد يعني سنه او سنتين او ثلاثه او اربعه او يمكن اوقات 10 او 15 سنه. فمش معناه انه يعني بيدفعوا مخالفات انه راح الهدم، لا. ففي عندنا نسبه كثير كثير عاليه. يعني اذا بدنا نيجي نحكي في المعدل 6280 بيت، نيجي نحكي انه في 5 سكان في كل بيت، بنحكي عن 30,000 واحد في سلوان مهددين بالتهجير والتطهير العرقي. فهذا الاشي يعني جريمة حرب يعني بمعناها الحرفي. وفي ايضا احياء اخرى، يعني في حي عين اللوزي ايضا بدهم يهدموا له حتى يبنوا يعني شارع استيطاني، شارع يربط المستوطنات الجنوبية في المستوطنات الغربية. وايضا في حي باد يصول يعني القضيه مشابهه لقضيه بطن الهواء كمان. وفي عندنا قضيه حي باد الربابه مصادره 50 دنم من اجل بناء مسارات وحدائق تلموديه وتوراتيه. يعني سلوان زي ما انتم شايفين يعني منطقه هي تعتبر استراتيجيه، منطقه قريبه جدا من السور الجنوبي للمسجد الاقصى المبارك، تعتبر يعني هي بدايه مدينه القدس تاريخيا، ايام يعني قبل حوالي 2000 او 1000 عام. فهذه المنطقه يعني حساسه جدا والاستهداف فيها عالي كثير كثير. وعماله بيصير فيها يعني جريمة حرب، جريمة تطهير عرقي بحق يعني أبناء سلوان.
شكرا أمير على المعلومات.
عفوا.
Amir is saying that to give you a little more context, there's around 6,280 houses in Silwan. So again, Silwan is the larger area that houses different neighborhoods like Batn Al Haaa, like Al Bustan, like Wadi Rabab and others that I'll mention right now. He's saying that these, imagine maybe about five people who live in each of these houses. That's 30,000 people threatened of being expelled from their homes. He's saying that many of these houses pay fines to the Israeli Zionist government. This fine doesn't mean that if you pay, and these are very expensive fines, doesn't mean that your house is not going to be demolished. No, they're going to come back in a year or two and they're going to demolish these houses. One of the neighborhoods called Ain Al Lauz, they are trying to demolish houses there because they want to build a road between illegal settlements. So the settlements of settlers who come from Europe and Brooklyn in New York, they're trying to build roads in between to make it more accessible for them to go through Palestinian land. And he's saying Silwan is a very strategic area because historically it is sort of the opening or the beginning of the city of Jerusalem. He says it's very close to the southern wall of Al-Aqsa Mosque, so they are targeting it. It's a very strategic targeting of the area and these families. And so that's basically what he said. أمير, عندي يمكن سؤال واحد بس. كيف فينا نحن نساعدكم من خارج فلسطين؟ شو ممكن الناس يعملوا عشان يساندوا أهالي سلوان؟
يعني بالدرجة الأولى إنه يكون في يعني دائما مظاهرات. يعني إحنا دائما بنعرف إنه أمريكا يعني هي اللي بتحكم العالم، وأمريكا يعني هي أكثر دولة يعني مناصرة لدولة الاحتلال. فإذا كان في دائما مظاهرات، دائما بيكون في ضغط على هذه الحكومة، بكون منيح. يعني احنا دائما وابدا بنعول على الجماهير، بنعول على الشعوب الحرة، الشعوب يعني اللي بتناصر قضايانا العادلة. فمثل ما صار قبل فترة كان في يعني مظاهرة حاشدة في امريكا، مش عارف في اي مدينة بالضبط، نسيت في اي ولاية، بس تم تسكير الشارع فيها. فكل هذا يعني بيلعب دور قوي. احنا بس فقط دائما ندعو انه الشعوب، العالم، في كل العالم وخاصة في أمريكا كمان، لأنه يعني بصراحة أمريكا هي يعني حاليا للأسف هي اللي عمالة بتحكم بالعالم، وهي الأكثر يعني دولة مناصرة لدولة الاحتلال. فلهيك دائما يعني احنا بندعو انه يكون في تظاهرات حاشدة، بنكون دائما ندعو يكون في يعني ضجات إعلامية، دائما نكون ندعو انه في هاشتاجات تفعل دائما. أي نعم يعني انتم بعاد عنا، بس ولكن الإعلام قوي، والإعلام يعني بأثر. يعني الإعلام له دور كثير كثير جيد، خاصة في تسليط الضوء على قضايانا، وبيأثر على دولة الاحتلال. يعني أيضا بيرفع من معنوياتنا. لعلمك لما يكون في يعني دائما كلام بالإعلام وعلى الفيسبوك وعلى الانستغرام عن مواضيع سلوان أو الشيخ جراح أو القدس أو بشكل عام يعني قضايا الشعب الفلسطيني، صدقيني بيرفع المعنويات للسماء يعني، وبنشعر إنه والله لا، في ظهر بسندنا، في شعوب معنا، فبدنا نستمر في صمودنا ورباطنا ويعني وإرادتنا القوية من أجل مكافحة الإرهاب الاحتلالي اللي عمالة بتشنه الحكومة الفاشية هاي اللي بدها تهجرنا، بدها تهدم بيوتنا ومنازلنا.
So you heard it from Ameer, folks. I asked him, what can we do from abroad, from outside of Palestine? He said protests. So what San Francisco is doing right now, what DC was doing before, Detroit, other cities around the US. He says since the US is one of the superpowers and it gives strong support to the Zionist apartheid state of Israel, any pressure we exert on private companies in the US, on the government, on the Biden administration, it makes a huge difference. He also says to not stop talking about Silwan and to put pressure on the media. He says every time they see Silwan or Sheikh Jarrah being talked about on US media or international media, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, it also lifts their spirits. And gives them a lot of encouragement to continue protesting themselves, knowing that there are people abroad who are all eyes on Silwan, all eyes on Sheikh Jarrah, keeping an eye on what's going on to defend them and make sure that they're supported.
شفت كيف هلا بينوا النجوم والهلال؟ هذه النجوم في حوالي 3 نجوم زي ما انت شايفه، 3 نجوم داخل حي بطن الهواء، تم الاستيلاء عليهم من خلال يعني محاكم الاحتلال العنصرية، وتم تهجير يعني سكانهم، وحاليا بدهم يستولوا على بقية المنازل، وإن شاء الله إنه يعني ما بيقدروا.
So he's saying, if you can see right now, if you look at Amir's camera, you can see, stars that are lit up. These are the houses that settlers took over for Palestinians. This is the Batn Al Haaa neighborhood in Silwan. All right. أمير بدك تزيد شيء، بدك تخبرنا كمان شيء؟ هلا حدا حيشاركنا كمان يفضلنا؟
لا خلص أنا يعني
إيه كمل.
إذا خلص أنا هيك كل شيء تمام. يعني إذا بتحبوا نخلي حدا تاني يطلع يعني بصير برضه. أنا بدي أطلع هلا، بستمر معاكم يعني صبية أو حدا تاني، أو إذا يعني في عندكم مشارك آخر بده يشارك يحكي في قضية تانية برضه بصير.
هلا نحن رح ننهي، حنفرجي شيء من سان فرانسيسكو، اذا حدا بده يشاركنا شيء
تمام
اهلا وسهلا، فحسب انت.
تمام ولا يهمك، نكون على تواصل. يعطيكم
العافيه،
مشكورين جدا.
شكرا كثير. This was Ameer from Silwan. He joined us from Silwan to talk to us about what's happening right now, real time. شكرا كثير أمير على
يعطيكم العافية. سلام.
All right, folks, before we end, we're just going to show you one more thing from San Francisco. Let's see. Give me just a minute. Just a minute, folks. All right, here's. Hi.
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
Live from San Francisco, as you can see below. Go ahead.
All right, we're live from San Francisco here in front of the MZ Foundation building. Everyone make some noise. Thank you so much for joining the live stream and hanging out with us this morning, whether you're on the Pacific Coast, the East Coast, or in Palestine itself. We really appreciate all of the support and all of the attention we're bringing to the American nonprofits that are funding ethnocide, genocide, and ethnic cleansing in Palestine. This is one such example. We're in front of the MZ Foundation in San Francisco. Myron Zimmerman, as you may have heard through the live stream before, or if you're just joining in, we're sorry, it seems like there's an ambulance. One moment. All right, we're back. So we're in front of Myron Zimmerman's office here. He is a real estate magnate, a real estate tycoon who makes money off the displacement and gentrification in the Bay Area and all over the country. And he uses that money to personally finance the ethnic cleansing and forced expulsions and displacement in Palestine, in places like Silwan and Sheikh Jarrah. The MZ Foundation, since 2015, has given $3.8 million to the Central Fund of Israel. That is the organization that makes up 99% of the Israeli Land Fund's budget. The Israeli Land Fund is directly responsible for buying out the properties, for paying the legal fees of all the settlers that are trying to force Palestinians into court, to displace them out of their own ancestral land and homes. So what MZ is doing here is enabling American settlers from the Bay Area, from New York, from all over the country, who have never been to Palestine and have no connection to Palestine, to move in and replace the Palestinians indigenous to their own land. What do we think of that? What do we think of that? MZ, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. MZ, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. MZ, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. MZ, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. MZ, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. MZ, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. For anyone that's just tuning in, we're just finishing up in front of the MZ office in San Francisco. We want you to know that MZ Foundation, hosted in this very building, contributes money to the Central Fund of Israel, as well as the Friends of Ir David Foundation, the Hebron Fund, as well as right-wing fascist organizations in the United States as well, like PragerU University, David Horowitz Center, Jihad Watch, and all of these organizations that are labeled as hate groups. Give me just one moment.
Free! Free Palestine!
Free! Free Palestine!
Free! Free! Free Palestine!
Free, free, free Palestine! MZ, what do you say? How many homes have you sold today? MZ, what do you say?
How many homes have you sold today? MZ, what do you say? How many homes have you sold today? MZ, what do you say? How many homes have you sold today?
MZ, what do you say?
How many homes have you sold today?
And we're also here representing Jewish Voice for Peace Bay Area and Berkeley. A lot of us here are Jews, and we're coming out publicly as Jews to condemn what's happening here and to condemn the conflation of Judaism with Israel, as well as to make it very clear that Zionism and settler colonialism is not a religious conflict. It's not an age-long ancient conflict between Muslims and Jews. It is simply the application of genocide and settler colonialism. So what Myron Zimmerman is doing here is hiding behind the facade of a Jewish charity while he is doing nothing for Jews, for Jewish values. What he's doing is simply funding genocide. Jews in the diaspora, genocide in Palestine is not keeping us safe. We know that our solidarity is linked intrinsically with Palestinian solidarity. And none of us are free until all of us are free. We would also like to point out that any organization or individual associated with MZ is equally responsible for the ethnic cleansing and displacement you heard about earlier in this live. And that includes Hillel Silicon Valley, Students Supporting Israel, and Chabad Berkeley. Every organization that takes the same apartheid money that MZ sends to Israel to fund the legal fees of the settlers that are evicting Palestinians out of their homes is equally complicit in genocide. And we will make that truth known. They can no longer hide behind their tax-exempt status, behind the facade of being a Jewish charity. We will make it known that Hillel Silicon Valley is equally responsible for genocide as the same as MZ because they accept money from them and they don't have to. So we call on Hillel Silicon Valley and all organizations associated with MZ to stop taking their money, stop funding displacement, stop funding apartheid, and shut down MZ. Let's repeat after me. Shut down MZ!
Shut down MZ!
Shut down MZ!
Shut down MZ!
What? Okay, I'm passing the phone.
صباح والمساء الخير، الله يعطيكم العافية ل PYM والله يعطيك ألف عافية أستاذ أمير. I'd like to begin with a quote by Ghassan Kanafani, a famous Palestinian activist who was killed by Israel, when he said, "Imperialism has laid its body all over the world, the head in Eastern Asia, the heart in the Middle East, its arteries reaching Africa and Latin America. Wherever you strike it, you damage it, and you serve the world revolution." Nowhere else is this more clear than with the MZ Foundation. The MZ Foundation funds not only the settlements that are happening in the West Bank, but also displaces and gentrifies San Francisco, pushing out the people of color and communities of color within the Bay Area in general. It also funds racist organizations like Prager University that promotes Reaganism, promotes conservatism, and many, many other ideologies that harm and disproportionately impacts all people of color. So this further proves and accentuates that the cause for Palestine is not only a cause for Palestinians, not only a cause for Arabs, but a cause for all people living under occupation, under racist regimes, under oppression, and under all forms of exploitation. So with me, من المية للمية فلسطين عربية ومن المية للمية فلسطين عربية. Free Palestine.
As Jews, we say, not in our name, not in our dime. Stop the ethnic cleansing in Palestine.
Not in our name,
Not in our dime. Stop ethnic cleansing in Palestine. Not in our name, not in our dime. Stop ethnic cleansing in Palestine.
not in our name, not in our dime.
Stop ethnic cleansing in Palestine. Stop you missed any part of the live stream, this will be uploaded. So please tell your friends, your comrades, your families, anyone that cares about Palestine or should care about Palestine, to come back and watch this live stream in the entirety, because we had some amazing speakers, including really powerful, amazing residents in Silwan that explained the impact of ethnic cleansing, the impact of what MZ Foundation here in San Francisco directly does on the ground. So thank you so much to Palestinian Youth Movement for coordinating this with us. We are eternally honored as JVP Bay Area and JVP Berkeley to hold this space with y'all. And we thank everyone for coming out. I'm gonna pass the microphone over again, and we'll close out. Thank you so much. Woo!
Thank you, guys. This was Jewish Voice for Peace in San Francisco, standing in solidarity with the Palestinians in Silwan. We had Ameer from Silwan live talk to us about what's happening in all the neighborhoods in real time. Thank you all again. This will be saved on our page, the Palestinian Youth Movement. Share it around and support JVP Berkeley and Bay Area. See you all around.